Hello there, everybody, and welcome. I heard about this. If you guys don't know, it's about Snow White. They're talking about how it's not going to be about her falling in love or waiting for a one true love, but it's about woman power or something. I don't know. But I seen Dante talk about it, or at least a little bit, I think. And Bo was like, "Why not just make another movie?" And I agree with that. Why Snow White was already made. It's already a story about something specific. So if you want to make something new, just make something new. Don't use something old and replace the story with something new, because then that's a new story.
Disney's upcoming Snow White movie is looking like the biggest dumpster fire to come out of the company so far. Rachel Zegler, the actress playing Snow White, is actually proud of her hatred for the character and the story,
No, I'm
calling
not.
the prince of the story a stalker, saying that she
What?
thought it was too scary and that she's maybe seen it twice across her entire life.
Her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
However, this wasn't just a one-off. Nearly every decision Disney's made towards
Weird.
That was weird.
However,
Snow White star Rachel Ziegler, 22, is slammed as a fake feminist and accused of gaslighting Disney fans as resurfaced interviews show her repeatedly trashing original cartoon.
this wasn't just a one-off. Nearly every decision Disney's made towards this movie has announced the same type of stupidity. For example, instead of 7 dwarfs, Snow White is going to meet 7 diverse magical creatures.
Really?
The prince will be cut altogether, and the story won't
No
revolve
prince.
around love at all. Instead, Snow White's going to pursue her dreams of becoming a leader, a
That's not Snow White. What story is this, bro? That's not Snow White. What? Becoming a leader? No prince. What?
gold boss, and seizing power for herself. So how did it come to this? Snow White is an essential part of Disney. It was the movie that started it all. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that this film was the backbone of hundreds of millions of childhoods. The money from the movie literally built Disney's first studio. So how are Disney going to treat the most
Yeah,
simple,
that's
beloved
crazy.
work of art? Well, let's take a look. So one of the
That's
most
an
famous
original.
love stories, up there with Romeo and Juliet in its cultural significance, is going to be about girl boss attitudes instead.
That's
I mean,
dumb.
it's an insult to even call this movie Snow White. The movie seems like a parody of
White and the 7 politically correct companions. See, like, bro, if you gonna add stuff like this in movies, at least make it make sense, or like, like make new characters or new stuff with it. Like, I remember when they were trying to make Superman gay or something. Like, why not make a different character instead of Superman that has powers that's gay, instead of trying to change an already not gay character? I don't know if it was Superman or whatever, or I don't even know whatever. And then they try to make Joker trans, I think. I don't know. But like, if you're gonna do that, just make new characters for that, because it's weird, because it's like a character that's been known as one thing for like 25 plus years. I don't know if it's actually 25 plus years. For 25 plus years, all of a sudden we're just gonna change it like that to be something completely different, when you could just easily make a new character however you want to fit whatever, right?
modern Disney, but it's genuinely just the standard for them now, as for years they've been pumping out flop after flop, sequels and remakes that all tell the same story by hijacking people's childhood classics. A few of the more recent ones are The Little Mermaid, Peter Pan, Wendy, Pinocchio,
I didn't know about
Mulan,
Peter Pan
Aladdin,
and Wendy.
The Lion King. The list
I
just
did-
goes on, and
I
there's a
didn't know about
bunch of
Mulan.
similarities between all of these movies. They all got middling to poor reviews, and they
Really?
barely broke even or just flat out lost money. Even the critics couldn't justify them, and audiences definitely weren't interested in these movies. But more
I didn't know
importantly,
about the other one.
they
I know
were
about The Little Mermaid,
completely
and about it
unnecessary.
being
And there's
black.
a
I don't
few
really
good
care.
reasons for
It could
all
be
of these
black, it could be
failures,
white.
and
I
a
don't
huge
care. I
reason
don't
to
watch
why
Little
Snow
Mermaid.
White is going to fail at the box office. In the
Like, if you just gonna change the skin color of the character, cool, I guess, right? But as long as you're not changing the story, the whole story, I'm like, okay, that's fine. As long as you're not changing the core story, fine. Changing like their race, I guess it's like pushing it, but yeah.
The most obvious one is that nobody wanted these movies to begin with. The originals are classics, made with love and care for the fairy tales or stories they're telling. Over decades and decades of history, they all
Imagine
rose to the
Lion
top
King,
and
but
kept their place in culture.
bro is
because
gay
of
and
this.
doesn't have a
So
son.
trying to remake
That's
them
crazy.
immediately puts you in competition with some of the best movies
No
ever
Simba.
made, which is ridiculous when you take a look at what the remakes bring to the table. They're just bad films, plain and simple. They have some
2020.
good qualities, of course, and it's hard to generalize. The visual effects are often stunning, and the actors try their best with what they're given. But with few exceptions, All these films have absolutely awful writing. The way they treat their characters is almost childlike in its simplicity. The heroines of these movies aren't flawed or interesting at all. Instead, it's the world that gets forced to change around them. Mulan's a perfect example of this. In the original, Mulan is no different from anyone else from the outside. She struggles at first, but overcomes her obstacles through hard work, perseverance, and the strength of her will. In the remake,
I remember watching
Mulan
it.
is given superpowers instead.
Really?
Only they're not really superpowers. Instead, they're explained through a bastardization of the Chinese idea of qi. The end result is a character that doesn't change or grow because she's already finished her arc before she's even started. And a final irony of the Mulan film is that while it sold itself under the buzzword of diversity, it was one of the most exploitative films in modern history. I mean, most of the filming took place in the Chinese province of Xinjiang, the same province where China is imprisoning and torturing millions of its minority peoples in re-education camps, with the movie even giving credits and thanks to the local Chinese government,
That's
including
crazy.
the specific department responsible for these re-education camps, or in more plain words, concentration camps. Mulan's a result of the standard heroine template that Disney uses in all of their modern movies. Without flaws or growth, these characters are just boring and unlikable. Instead, they've been designed.
Wasn't that why like it's kind of hard to make movies or stuff about Superman because he's so OP? He's like basically OP itself, and like that's why it's hard. That's why DC finds it hard to make movies. I guess I don't know, because Marvel has an easy time making movies about anybody because they're basically humans with superpowers. I guess, but like I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
To fit a set of
Let's just
traits and
continue.
qualities which the corporations have decided are what makes a strong female character, a girl boss, and they're always the most powerful character in the story. to the
She-Hulk.
point where
I
the
remember
conflict
people did not
loses
like
all
that.
of its momentum. Watching Captain Marvel feels like an
Oh right, yeah. They were like, bro. I remember that it's like the Thor movie. It's like Thor in Love or whatever. They're like, bro got nerfed so she could seem stronger, and then with the Hulk thing, she was twerking with Meg Thee Stallion and shit, and then she was beating. I don't know.
an episode of One Punch Man, without any of the good bits, just waiting for her to finally and effortlessly win. They'll also magically gain whatever ability they need to continue the plot, like in the newer Star Wars movies, when Rey gets her new healing powers or her sudden mastery of lightsaber fights. They never earn this power, but once they get it, they immediately know what to do and how to use it. At the end of the movie, they haven't learned anything about themselves actually related to their struggles and their journey. Instead, it's the world that changes and realizes their superiority. Like She-Hulk, who's almost immediately in full control of her powers, she effortlessly integrates into her identity. It took Bruce Banner a movie, a multi-film character arc, and a whole cinematic universe to get to that stage. But a final part of the strong female character template is that they're always obsessed with their own power and leadership. Of course, it's great to teach little girls that they can rule the world, but now that's seemingly the only thing women can be anymore if they want to be feminist and acceptable by modern standards. In effect, we've traded one closed-off box to put female characters in for another one. Women don't have to only be housewives and princesses, but they don't have to be leaders either. Feminism means the freedom for women to be whatever they choose to be, framing the desire for love, having children, and a happy family as a patriarchal indoctrination has the same silencing and dehumanizing effect as any other constraint society puts on women. But that's exactly what Snow White will be about, and if Rachel Zegler's interviews on the film are to be believed, Snow White won't be falling for a prince or even thinking about love or other people at all.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White. Yeah.
Saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about
Then
true
it's not
love.
Snow
She's
White.
dreaming
Snow
about
White.
becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Instead, she reduced the prince's role in the story to being a stalker. Inevitably, his only role in the remake will be as a laughable example of a pathetic weak man who Snow White pushes aside to pursue what's really important.
Bruh.
Or he's just cut out entirely, never even mentioned, and never in the film to begin with. I mean, in the original, he's an essential part of the story. The movie's arcs around this, but Disney's already shown their own disregard for the source material. It isn't surprising that Zegler's barely seen the film, but it begs the question, if she hates the fairy tale and the original so much, why is she even starring in Snow White in the first place? Well, of course we all know the real reason for this. It's the same reason Disney's making the film in the first place.
Money?
By pandering to this caricature of feminism, they're hoping they can cover up the bad writing and the many flaws in the premise itself, that the politically correct masses will gobble it up and use it as an example of what modern women should aspire to be. But all the virtue signaling in the world can't cover up the fact that barely anyone even wants this. The movie is written and directed by a man. The audience is a mix of men and women. And at the end of the day, Disney has nothing to do with feminism at all. And you see, the thing is, Disney's audience don't want this corporate brand of half-baked pseudo-feminism that Disney's trying to sell down everyone's throats. I mean, when you compare Disney's many failed attempts at this compared to the Barbie movie, it becomes crystal clear at what people really want to see. The movie's just setting itself up to be just one more in a long line of
Winnie
overly
the Pooh?
sanitized Disney.
There is a new
I didn't know
method
they
that
had
the
Winnie the
Dubai
Pooh one.
millionaires are using to make lots of money. And most people don't even know this method exists.
Disney flops, and defenders of Disney's
Tinkerbell.
approach might put the onus on the audience, calling out critics of their films
weren't
for
the
being anti-inclusive
writers on
or
strike?
simply not respecting stories told from the female perspective. However, Barbie's success is evidence that this notion is simply not true at all. It's blown away every recent
I haven't
live-action
watched
Disney
it.
project
I don't even
after
watch
the
movies for real.
and is currently on track to become one of the highest-grossing films of all time,
Oh,
showing
wow.
us that films that are inclusive aren't always complete flops, but woke, virtue-signaling, boring, empty movies are hated universally in the public. And yet for years, Disney has continuously pumped out these sorts of movies, producing flop after flop, sequels and remakes that all tell the same story, hijacking everyone's childhood classics. Barbie has smashed countless box office records, and has already grossed over $1 billion worldwide, making it clear that the world does have some capacity to respond well to some female-driven narratives when the script is written well, and its creators have respect for the source material while at the same time not taking themselves too seriously. Because you see, Disney isn't just failing because the movies are about women.
She went
Because
into
they're
work.
terribly written,
Yeah.
virtue-signaling
That was
films,
the part I was talking
given the
about.
same constant gold boss narrative that's as stale as it can come.
She's just
Whereas
walking
Barbie
around
is
as
the perfect
Hulk,
example
or
of a
She-Hulk.
blockbuster feminist
Isn't it
story
supposed to be
that
like
the
a secret?
universe is related to. It's enjoyed because its message and main character, despite being in Barbie land, are very much somehow grounded in reality. Margot Robbie's Barbie isn't an exceptional leader or an especially gifted or talented individual. She's one of many Barbies in her little world, with most of these other Barbies being more tangibly impressive, having more specialized skills than Margot Robbie does. And when she's met with unexpected conflict, she's just as ill prepared as many a person would be. The odds seem instantly stacked against her, and she quickly becomes a fish out of the water. And the uphill nature of Barbie's struggle and her changing throughout the movie as a result of what she's experiencing is what makes it a compelling story. And despite her flawless appearance at the start of the movie, we quickly find out that she's just as flawed and vulnerable as everyone else is. And yet Disney's female-driven blockbusters seem averse to writing their protagonists this way, out of fear that they will be criticized as anti-feminist. However, it's clear that when you take a look at male-driven movies, just how flawed this logic truly is. Not every male protagonist is John McClane, James Bond, or Sherlock Holmes. Sometimes the most compelling protagonists aren't these great men we dream to be. Sometimes they're the characters who are regular, seemingly unspecial people, who when faced with conflict become great, going through a hero's journey. So not every female character needs to be a beacon of unwavering ruthlessness or bravery to be interesting or feminist. They just have to be someone a woman watching can see themselves in. And the other key element to Barbie's success is its creativity. The movie is uniquely designed, the cinematography draws you in, the set designs and creativity is engaging for all audiences. And the movie, while being far from perfect with a very questionable narrative, is still entertaining to almost everyone. There's a reason it grossed over $1 billion at the box office. Because
Damn.
the Barbie movie took some needed risks. The jokes are surprising, the existential themes are at the forefront of the movie, and the filmmakers are unafraid to make a viewer uncomfortable at times. However, when you take a look at Disney's recent movies, they're so unwilling to take any risks, so scared to accidentally offend any particular group, that the movies end up saying nothing, and in turn, they appeal to no one. The stories are just completely sanitized and full of virtue signaling. Women don't identify with them, and men of course never want to see these movies. And perhaps the strangest part is that the box office numbers reflect all of this, with nearly all of their live action remakes raking in just a fraction of what they could have, considering the A-list cast and the popularity of the IPs. So when will Disney finally learn from this? Not this time apparently. A lot of the outrage around Snow White has been about their choices surrounding the 7 dwarfs. It's really just a lose-lose scenario, and yet another reason they shouldn't even make this film in the first place. You see, in the original story, they're a collection of name stereotypes, while also being dwarfs on top of that. They laid the groundwork for decades of stupid jokes and prejudice, so it's inevitable that they be changed in some way, but Disney's original plan seems to have been to keep them pretty much the same. An earlier remake called Snow White and the Huntsman kept them as dwarfs, but didn't actually hire any dwarf actors and just superimposed other actors' faces onto smaller bodies. However, Disney were quick to change their tune when Peter Dinklage made a statement rightfully calling them out as backwards, as it's ridiculous to preach diversity because you've hired a Latino actor for the main part, and yet you keep the disabled stereotypes in the film. So they did a 180, turning the dwarfs into nondescript magical creatures, only one of which is actually a dwarf now, which obviously isn't a good decision either. Cutting out the dwarfs may avoid the stereotype accusations, but it's all so far removed from the actual fairy tale that it's barely even Snow White anymore. With no prince, only one dwarf, and a power-hungry Snow White, unconcerned with any true love.
Okay then, like, let's say that they do make all these changes, right? And like all this stuff does happen. What's the point of the movie? Like, sure, she's a girl boss, but what's the point of the movie? What am I watching a movie for? Because like an original Snow White is for her waiting for true love and her prince to come wake her up or whatnot and escaping her evil godmother, right? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me know if that's right. I'm pretty sure it is. But what's the point of this one? Like she wakes up by herself and just starts working a 9 to 5, getting her boss power up there. What's the goal? What's the message of the movie?
Hating men and the patriarchy,
Or
it's a wonder why they're
what's the
sticking with the
point of the
name
movie?
and not just
Like,
making an
what's gonna
entirely
be
new
the
film.
whole
The decision
thing?
also means that Disney will be hiring way less dwarf actors who already have trouble finding work that isn't demeaning. This all comes at the same time as Hugh Grant playing the role of an Oompa Loompa in another Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake. At the end of the day though, they could have cast real dwarfs in the movie as long as they actually had good writing. If they humanized the characters rather than using them as pawns in a game of identity politics, it could work. But knowing what we know about the rest of the movie, this will never happen. And we can't forget that this is all a publicity stunt for Disney anyway. They don't care about actually representing minority communities or standing up against prejudice. If they did, they wouldn't censor their own movies when they're trying to sell them to more repressive countries. One scene from Avengers Endgame, where a man just talks about going on a date with another man, was entirely cut from the Russian release. The
Oh,
same
really?
thing happened in the Disney Pixar film Onward, when it released in 2020. A same-sex kiss scene was edited out of Marvel's Eternals for some Middle Eastern countries, and China's probably one of the most demanding countries for censorship, and Disney's very happy to play along. A huge amount of their movies would have been even bigger flops if it weren't for the Chinese market. They changed the Tibetan character to our white one for Doctor Strange, also that they could secure a Chinese release. A Simpsons episode that included a joke about Tiananmen Square mysteriously disappeared from Hong Kong's Disney Plus, because Disney only cares about the money, killing all of their ability to make good movies and inspire creativity. So maybe after the Snow White failure, they'll finally learn, but probably not.
OFX gives me a
Very
strong sense.
good video, my guy. I actually fuck with the video. I like it. I like it. I truly believe that Disney believes that any publicity is good publicity. We should all give Disney a big salute to making DreamWorks big. I like how everything comes full circle. The movie that started Disney is now going to finish it. That's actually funny. But like, subscribe. See you guys later. Hope you have a good day or night, and bye. And let me know what you guys' thoughts on this. But yeah, like if you're gonna make all new stuff and change like the complete story, may as well make a new story and not let it be called Snow White, because then people are gonna be like, that's not Snow White. Like, but then again, they're like, if we change it and we make it about a girl boss and like 7 people, then people aren't gonna watch it because there's not really any direction in the movie. So we gonna steal the name Snow White. So then people don't. So then people got a reason to come check it out because of the name. I know that's what they're thinking. At least I think. But yeah, bye.